When I was coming down here to my office to sign in, I was thinking I want to say something and I don't want to embarrass Priscilla, but there's this saying, I don't know if you've heard this, like hitch your wagon to a star. Priscilla is a star, and I just want to say if there's any opportunity you have, which I know you're already doing this, but I want to emphasize any opportunity to work with her, for her, any collaboration you can do, just go for it. By the way, I've done the same. She's working with me now. So let me introduce myself, and I want to start though by telling you what we're going to talk about and kind of how the next 45 minutes is going to go. Don't give away my secrets. Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, maybe I shouldn't say that because then she's not going to have any time. We need clones of Priscilla. Exactly, exactly. So Priscilla and I were talking about this a while ago, and the topic that I want to share with you, I'm an executive communication coach. So I want to sort of prime you with, I've got a note sheet up here just to make sure that I don't forget what I'm saying. I'm calling this presentation or this interaction that we're having, communicating with confidence, establishing executive presence. And the main takeaway that I hope you're going to get from this is that confidence really, really is key. Confidence, your experienced confidence, and sometimes even more importantly, people's perception of your confidence can unlock a lot of things, including executive presence, which is when you have credibility and you can make an impact, right? So this is the number one, I would call it, communication superpower or soft skill that we can all work on, including myself, like including Priscilla, right? We can all work on establishing confidence. And the good news is that confidence can be learned. I know that because I have epically failed. If we have time, I'm going to tell you the story of when I bombed so badly that I was going to say literally, I physically sweat through my blazer when I was in front of an audience. I sweat through like, it was bad. It was really bad. And here I am now. I've got podcasts. So let me introduce myself and then we'll get into it. Okay. So my name is Dr. Andrea Wojnicki. Please just call me Andrea. I know it's a mouthful. And I was also thinking about this when I came downstairs. I love the kind of international context that we have here with Latinos and Latinas. And I have a Polish last name, but I'm not Polish. I'm Irish and Scottish, actually. My dad was Scottish, my mom's Irish. So that's my background. I'm an executive communication coach at Talk About Talk, where I coach ambitious executives to really boost their communication skills and their confidence so they can establish credibility and then make an impact in and whatever their goal is, right? Like whether it's getting promoted or, making sales or whatever your objective is. So I have a podcast with 178 episodes, all focused on communication skills for executives. And I run boot camps. I do one-on-one coaching. I have an Inc. magazine column, and I've got lots to keep me busy. I do, as I said, private one-on-one coaching and boot camps and corporate workshops and keynotes. Previously, I worked as a brand manager at Kraft Foods. So my background is really focused on marketing. I have lots of marketing textbooks behind me. I worked as a brand manager at Kraft Foods, and then I went to Harvard and I did my doctorate on, my research was on interpersonal communication and word of mouth. I've got that right here, my dissertation research. So I've really been focused on communication and marketing and branding. And when I graduated, I went to the University of Toronto where I taught in the MBA program. I really enjoyed being in the classroom there. And then I started doing some consulting and then I started my podcast. And now I'm in my absolute happy place, which is helping ambitious executives transform into like their potential, right? So I have this fundamental belief that we all have a superpower. And if you can identify what that unique superpower is for you and then communicate it effectively, then the world's your oyster and you will be as happy and as successful as you can even imagine. All right. So I'm going to take us through three things. One is how to introduce yourself with confidence. The second is executive presence. And then the third one is kind of like a summary or my kind of main advice in terms of how to communicate with confidence. All right. Sound good? I see head nods. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. I just started using Canva and stopped using PowerPoint. And I'm so proud of myself. And Priscilla probably is proud of me too. Look what I made, Priscilla. Okay. So I want to start by saying power of three. Three is a magic number. Okay. You've probably heard this before. Three is, I hope, your default. So I'm pulling this presentation together, right? I was talking to Priscilla. I was like, I've got all these topics. And then I was like, no, I'm going to choose three. I'm going to take you through three things. Why? Three is substantive enough. It's almost a trend, right? It's substantial, but it's not overwhelming. So this is just like a little aside from the confidence and the executive presence that we're going to be talking about. Make three your default. I love this, like the three fingers. So again, I'm going to teach you how to introduce yourself with confidence. We're going to talk about what is executive presence and communicating with confidence. And then I would love to open it up for questions. All right. Since I started coaching folks many years ago, whether it's in corporate workshops or one-on-one coaching, I've noticed this common issue or challenge that people have in terms of introducing themselves. I hear like, I don't know what to say, or I realized I'm not listening to anyone else's introduction because my mind is racing. Should I be mentioning personal things, right? It's whether you're online or in person, when someone says, let's go around the table or around the screen and introduce ourselves, people feel anxious. And so I was coaching people on this, and given my focus on the power of three, I came up with a framework of three things that you need to follow, three steps to follow when you're introducing yourself. And it seemed to get a lot of traction, and it was working really, really well. So I wrote it up, I sent it to Harvard Business Review, and it was published. And at the end of 2023, announced the three most downloaded articles at hbr.org. And guess what? This was one of the top three. They didn't even email me to tell me. It was just like in a random HBR email. And I screamed when I was like, that's my article. I was so happy. I think the reason it's so popular, though, is because of what I just said. We all experience this anxiety. It's a common experience. It is anxiety laden, right? It's not pleasant to be so conscious and caught up in what we should be saying about ourselves. And this framework is so easy to remember because it's three things. And I'm going to teach it to you right now, if you don't know it already. The first thing is present. So you want to say something about yourself in present tense. A lot of people make the mistake of saying something about their past first. It's like, well, Priscilla, tell me about yourself. And she'd say, oh, not she wouldn't say this, but many people would say, oh, I was born in blah, blah, blah. And what? Wait a minute. If you are reinforcing your brand, right, and you're introducing yourself in a purposeful, strategic way, you want to focus first on the present. You want to establish who you are and what you do. So some people do this already. You may have heard yourself or other people say, like I did at the beginning here, my name is, I am at, right? So you just say what you do. Once you've done some work on your brand, you can start to extrapolate beyond that. But this is pretty easy. Just remember, start with present tense. You're not sharing your biography here, right? You're not starting from the day you were born. No. I am. Start with I am. Okay. Then you move on to step two, and that's past tense. In a professional context, this is where you can establish credibility. So I talked about my background in brand marketing. I talked about my education. I talked about a job that I had after that. And I shared a path. I didn't tell you everything, but I told you the things that I was hoping would help establish my credibility in your mind, right? So if you're talking to someone who wants to be mentored by you, right? And you're meeting each other for the first time, you think about the things that are relevant, that are going to establish credibility with that person. Okay? So it could be your education, it could be your how long you've been doing what you are doing, it could be an award that you won. I know Priscilla's won some amazing awards recently. You can talk about your awards, and you don't have to do it in a braggy way, right? You could say, last year, like I told you, I was delighted. I jumped up and down when I got the email from HBR, which they didn't even send to me. They just send it out to the public. But you can tell stories about things to make it not sound arrogant, right? You're sharing information in a professional context anyway that's going to help you establish credibility. So that's step two. Many people, unless they know this framework, would end their self-introduction there, right? They either would mess it up and start with the past and present, or they would start with the present, go to the past, and then they would say, well, and that's me. They're really missing the icing on the cake, which is step three, which is future tense. So ideally what you want to do here is share an enthusiastic statement about the future, and ideally it's with the future with the people that you're introducing yourself to. So I'm introducing myself to all of you, and I'll say, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you better and helping you, communicate with confidence. Or if you're working with, again, a new mentor, you could say, I can't wait to get to know you better and help you in your job. And you can probably even help me, right? So you're talking about your relationship with the person in the future. Okay. So I'm not sure. I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. I'm not sure how many of us we have here. I would love it if we could go into breakout groups of two. I think I can do this here. I might need my glasses. I'm going to put you into breakout groups of two people each so you can hear someone else introduce themselves using the present, past, future framework, and you can also practice it yourself. Okay. Don't know if I have the breakout groups, Priscilla.
I can do it. You want to do two?
Yep. I don't actually have that. Can we go for 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Present. Just remember, start with the present. It'll flow from there. How did it go?
I can go, even though I did it myself.
You are a very good sport, Nancy.
No, it's okay. I don't know. This always kind of like panicked me because especially like when I was in sales and in networking, I hated this because I never knew what to say that would be engaging or interesting. I just felt like I wasn't great at it at that time and people would glaze over. And so this time I had that mindset when I came into it, but then I was looking at the notes I had written on the advice that you had given and actually came pretty quickly. So I guess I'm getting better and improving and need to get rid of that mental trash and say that was me then, this is me now. And, it felt more natural. I pretended like I was talking to a new customer because I actually had just done this the other day. I was kind of shocked. The lady had said, can you tell me about you and your background? And so that's kind of how I approached it. So yeah, it was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be.
Amazing. I'm so happy to hear. I see people nodding their head. Joey, you're nodding. What did you experience?
For me, it was really cool because I kind of had the additional insight of looking at the people that I matched with, like through their LinkedIn's pretty like thoroughly. So I was just like, oh, like I kind of know what they would be talking about, but I'm curious to kind of hear it out of in this framework, in this state of mind, and I feel like I learned way more from it. And I also felt like it was a way to like humble brag because like I feel like anytime I think like I talk about myself, I could hear my mom like in the back of like my head being like, should you be saying it like that? Are you trying to take too much credit for stuff? But then I was like, oh no, this is the work I've been doing and it's more focused around these things. And so it wound up being a very convenient experience.
I love it, Joey. So you are touching on something that I think is a really key learning in terms of the stuff that I coach people on for personal branding. It's not that you're saying you're good at everything, but these are the things that I like in present tense that I am, that I do, that I'm capable of. And then here are the things that I've done. You're not bragging. You're saying, here are notable things that I've done so you can understand what I'm all about, what my goals are, what I've done, right? Establishing credibility. So arrogant people are defensive and they think they're good at everything. Or they talk about being good at everything, right? Confident, this is really important. Confident people are confident about what they know and what they've done. And they also have an open mind. That was not even in my notes, but I love that. I love that point. The other thing I wanted to share with you is something that I think about a lot, which is when you learn communication skills frameworks like this and you start using it, you will be distracting yourself from your anxiety when you think of the framework. So for a split second, you go, oh no, I have to introduce myself. I hate that. And then you go, oh, I have a framework. And then what's the framework again? See, I'm not even thinking about being anxious anymore. What's the framework again? Present, past, future. And then suddenly you're listening to other people introduce themselves, right? It's gold. Okay. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen because I have more. I have more for you. Here we go. All right. So this is going to be a little hard. I can only see a couple because of the way my screen is. I can only see a couple of you. So I want you to feel free to jump in. Executive presence is this term that seems to be getting, I can tell you as a communication coach, I talk to HR people, I talk to executives. It's getting a lot of traction these days. So it is something that we all want, that the best leaders have, but what is it? What makes up executive presence? There's no wrong answer here. I just want to hear, especially someone who hasn't said anything.
I'll go. It's Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. I can't even see you. I love it.
Executive presence is owning the space that you're trying to fill and being confident in doing so.
Yes. So I have a friend, Priscilla knows that I talk about this quite a bit. I have a friend who's married to my best friend who runs one of the biggest banks in North America. Okay, this guy exudes executive presence and he is in this happy place of confidence. You said the word confident. He is confident. He's not arrogant. He's always learning. I say something and he goes, "What? Say that again, Andrea?" Oh, and I'm like, "Really? Come on." And he's like, "No, he's always learning, right? But he's confident. I can imagine him in like an investor meeting with his senior, C-suite staff, or whoever, with the board of directors of the bank. He has this confident air around him. That's really the main point. But there actually is a recipe. So there's been some research done on executive presence. There's different ways of wording these things, but it's really three things. It's confidence, like you just said, Rebecca. It's also thrill for me, communication skills, right? So it's communicating with clarity, communicating with right. You don't hear these folks that have executive presence rambling on. They know how to speak clearly, emphatically. They don't, the nice way of putting it is they don't ramble. When you hear people rambling, it's usually because they're nervous, right? And then they kind of lose credibility, like what's the message? So there's communication skills. And then the third thing, based on the research that I've read, is, and they usually put it in quotes, like I'm doing the air quotes right now, it's how you show up. The other way to think about this is your personal brand. It includes how you look physically. And I'm not talking about your body shape. I'm talking about, like, have you taken care to show up, in terms of your appearance, your background. Like, I very purposefully have my desk with my bookshelf behind me because I want to reinforce this is how I show up, right? So you're not thinking Andrea must be smart because she's got books behind her, but I want to reinforce to my clients that the stuff that I'm teaching you, that I'm coaching you on, isn't just like off the top of my head. It's actually based on the research and the reading, right? So this is a really interesting recipe, I would call it, or checklist for executive presence. If you want to establish executive presence, and I would say who doesn't, it's really about establishing credibility. So this is confidence. Another word for it in the research on executive presence, they call it gravitas, right? This is what we're talking about today, confidence. Communication skills, including, I'm going to just pull out again, clarity and precision, and then how you show up, which is your brand. But I want to emphasize something here. I don't know if this occurred to you, but it certainly occurred to me. All three of these things are actually communication skills, right? I mean, obviously communication skills but so is confidence. I do probably the most workshops that I do are on personal branding. Second, the topic number 2 is confidence for sure. And I know that it's something that a lot of people grapple with in terms of their communication effectiveness and how you show up. I mean, you're communicating things, right? So it really is all about communication skills. And again, these things can be learned. So let's double down now on communicating with confidence. I want to ask, before I'm going to share with you 3, I guess, hacks or mindsets that I share with my clients that I see getting the most tractions. These are things that work for me and also work for them. But before I do that, other than the obvious, which people always say first, which is practice makes perfect. Of course, when you practice something, you will feel more confident and you will appear more confident. That's like the low-hanging fruit. I want to hear from at least 2 people here. What else do you do to boost your confidence? In the moment, you feel that shot of adrenaline. What do you do?
I like to prepare. So it's a kind of a fine line between preparing and over preparing. But I
Oh.
feel best when, especially if it's a topic, like if it's something I feel comfortable with, I can do it, off the cuff or not have too much preparation. But if it's something, sort of new, like we have a lot of new products right now at our company, then I feel comfortable when I look through the materials and then I make sure that whatever I'm presenting, I ask questions. If there's something on there, I don't want to be caught off guard. And so I'll go to the product team. Hey, you've mentioned XYZ. I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure. I think it means this. Is that right? Yep. Okay, great. And then, like you said, I'll either role play with somebody or practice myself. But
Yeah.
the preparation piece is key. And then I feel confident, like, okay, I've reviewed this, I've asked questions. If somebody asked me a question, I would feel confident responding. And then that makes me feel good. And then this is a really silly one, but especially if it's something really stressful or with like a really high level C-suite person, I had learned do the Wonder Woman pose that, I would go in the bathroom when I was at SAP or now at home, then I would do the Wonder Woman pose. And then I felt fine to, go and do or speak with anybody. It didn't matter what their persona was. Those types of things made me feel more confident and like I could do it no matter what the meeting was.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on both of those. I love it. Thank you so much, Nancy. So the first one, at first when you started talking about it, I was like, I just said doesn't include practice, and you're calling it prepare, but you're talking about it the same way. But you were talking about not just rehearsing, which is what I meant by practicing, right? But you're also really doubling down on understanding what it is that you're presenting if you're giving a formal presentation, right? So you are as knowledgeable as anyone in the room, which, by the way, I'm an academic and I've given these presentations where someone would ask a question and I would have absolutely no idea, but I knew that I had done this research and I had done the work. So I could say, that's a really interesting question, legitimately, right? Without trying to push it off. And I could say, I don't know an answer to that, but that is something that I could pursue in my next research paper, or let's talk about it, right? So when you do that kind of preparation and rehearsing, by the way, when someone comes, and this is what I was talking about, this is leading a little bit into one of the points that I wanted to make about a mindset. I have a mantra that I say to myself. I'm just going to jump right into this because it's such a good segue. I have a mantra that is, I know what I know and I'm keen to learn more. I was signing into an open Q&A once. It was where I was sitting right here. There were 800 people in the audience. And it was a session on personal branding. And I had no idea who was going to ask. Like, it wasn't planted. Some people are like, oh, the questions are planned in advance. Not at all. I was like, it could have been anything. And I just said to myself out loud before I entered the meeting, I said, Andrea, you know what you know, and you're keen to learn more. So this is my mantra, by the way, which is also my mindset. And so my mindset is that I have a growth mindset. I'm proud of what I know, and I'm keen to learn more. There are a couple of other mindsets I wanted to share with you. So one of them is that focusing, like I said, on your personal brand. So what are your unique strengths and passions? Thinking about those before you get out on stage, before you open the big meeting that you're presenting to, thinking consciously about what your strengths and passions are, and then entering the room, getting behind the podium, going into the meeting. And it's not that you know everything or that you're good at everything, but these things you sure know that you are, right? And this is a fantastic way of improving your confidence. And the other thing that I know helps people improve their confidence is understanding the truth, which is almost every human on the planet experiences imposter syndrome. And in fact, the folks that don't are probably arrogant, and we don't want to hear them anyway. We've all been to, conferences where there's a panel of three or four or five folks on the stage having a conversation, and one of them just comes across as so arrogant. They probably don't have imposter syndrome, and you don't want to be like that, right? So you can use that shot of adrenaline. I call it the shot of adrenaline. I feel it in my chest. It's like, oh, now I have some positive energy, right? I'm not going to come across as flat. So use that adrenaline to fuel your energy, and then remind yourself of your superpowers. Remind yourself of your growth mindset, right? And then think about your mantra. So your mantra will focus your mind. Mine is, I know what I know and I'm keen to learn more. I sometimes also will talk to myself, and there's research. If you talk to yourself in second person, like the way a friend would, Andrea, you got this. You are prepared. You're going to knock it out of the park. Melanie, you know that you have 20 years experience here. You are going to be fine. In fact, you're going to, rock this, right? So when you talk to yourself like that, your brain believes it because it thinks someone else is talking to you. It's an awesome mind game. The third tactic relates to what you said, Nancy. So there's this research, which, by the way, has been called into question, but I don't know anyone who I've coached who hasn't said that this happens for them. that when they put your hands on your hips, like I'm doing here, you put your hands on your hips, puff your chest out and be as big as and expansive as you can and take a deep breath, you will feel confident. Why? Because your brain believes what your body is telling it. If your body's telling your brain, I'm confident because, you know, so I'm not going to get into politics, but I am going to say Trump, there are so many pictures of him being big, right? He's got his shoulders back and he's being big. And the pictures of him from his last time in the office, in the Oval Office, I'm leaning forward here. He would be man spreading. He would be taking up more than his fair share of space. And he probably wasn't conscious of it. He may have been, but confident people take up space. So the next time you feel that shot of adrenaline, you've run through the mindset, the mantra, whatever works for you. If you're still feeling nervous, take a deep breath and take up space. Confident people take up space. Okay. So this is my summary slide. If you want to take a screenshot, I wanted to share 3 things with you. And not surprisingly, there are 3 points for each of the 3 things. I hope you will use the self-introduction framework, present, past, future. I hope you will think about where you can get some traction in developing your own executive presence to help you accelerate your career trajectory. Think about your confidence, both how you feel and how you're perceived. This is the gravitas point. Think about improving your communication skills, especially clarity and precision. Those are the things I notice get a lot of impact in terms of elevating folks' executive presence. And then thinking about how you show up. How you show up. Are you showing up disheveled or professional, right? And I know that means different things now. Not everybody's wearing a fancy suit and tie, of course. That I'm not saying dress formally, but think about how you show up and how people, often non-consciously are perceiving you. And then when you need a boost of confidence in the moment, think about your mindset, your mantra, and your body language. And different things work for different people. So that's why I'm giving you kind of like my top 3. You can think about what works for you. And now I think we probably went, we've got 4 minutes. I see. I'm happy to stay a little bit longer, but if you want to check out my website, I try to make it as easy as possible for people. It's talkabouttalk.com. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, please connect with me. And if you listen to podcasts, I just released episode 178, and it's called Talk About Talk Communication Skills Training. So I would love to answer any questions you have about confidence, about executive presence, or about any communication skills. Joey.
Yes, I just didn't want to talk over anybody. First of all, I've like Priscilla's recommended you before, so I've actually listened to these podcasts that you've done, so they're really awesome. Want to recommend those. A question that I had for follow-up was you were talking about, how to take up space or like, kind of being big in the room. How do you do that without rambling or like finding the right amount? Because I think in a virtual environment for me, I feel like I sometimes try to find and seek that. And then I'm like, oh no, I am rambling or I'm adding input where it's like not necessarily like needed. So what is the balance between making sure you have your fair say or even like taking up that space, but then balancing it with like quality feedback or a constructive conversation?
So 2 things, probably more than 2, but 2 things that come to mind. One is when I said take up space, I actually meant physically. So I meant, especially when you're in person, people can see how much space you're taking up, and the more space you take up, the more confident you appear. There are some people who need to take up less space. I kind of alluded to that before, right? It sounds like that's not you. When you are online, by the way, there's all sorts of research showing that you want to show people the palms of your hand, but you don't want to be doing it too much. But showing the palms of your hand, why? Because we're wired to trust people when we can see that they don't have a weapon in their hand from way back, right? A gun, a stone, a spear, whatever those monkeys were using to fight with each other. So show your hands a little bit. But now you're talking about what I call, I think, Joey, I call it tracking the ratio. So there are 8 people in a meeting. This sounds really weird, but Andrea, are you talking about 12.5% of the time? Like 1/8 of the time? If there are 4 people in a meeting, if I'm the kind of person, probably like I'm an extrovert, Joey, and it sounds like you might be as well. I'm maybe rambling, talking too much. I should be talking less than 25% of the time. I know I've noticed that a lot of junior folks, it's actually the opposite. They're like, I am struggling to get my hand up. And I'm like, you should be talking your fair share. So I call it tracking the ratio. if there's 4 people in the meeting, you better make sure you talk at least 25% of the time, is what I would say. So just keeping that in mind. And then I actually just did a post about this week, which is if you're a leader, your responsibility is to make sure everybody speaks their fair share. So if there's someone in the meeting that hasn't said anything yet, reaching out to them maybe after the meeting and making sure they feel comfortable. And if it keeps happening in a meeting, you can call them out. You could say, Melanie, I haven't heard anything from you today. I'd really love to know and you could compliment them, right? Based on your expertise, I would love to hear what you think about this topic. And I know we all would. And then you just go and let the person jump in. Does that help, Joey, this idea of tracking the ratio?
Definitely does. I've never thought about that many people, like, and how much I should be talking. And so I feel like I'm going to be testing that this week as I'm in different meetings. So thank you.
So if you're like me and you tend to overshare or take up too much airtime, it'll force you to make sure that you are not sharing less relevant things, that you are sharing things well, this is so important, I am going to stick my hand up. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I'm an over explainer. So like I'll explain something 3 different types of ways and nobody asked me to. But I'm like, all right, did everybody get this? But that was for me, my first job was teaching. So that's where like I had that mentality of it. So I need to shift it.
Let them ask, right? Let them ask. Nancy, I see you nodding. I don't know if it's because you think Joey just is talking too much or if you feel the same way.
I feel the same way. I'm an over explainer also. I'm trying to be better. They're like, they understand, like you don't need to say it again. Or I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to walk it back. And I'm a new leader. So I'm trying to allow people to feel comfortable, like saying what they need to say. The man that is my manager, he doesn't really give people the space to say what they need to say. If people try to, they're told they're negative or not a team player, or, oh, that's against these other teams and we're all one team, so you shouldn't be talking that way. So then we're forced to have like hallway conversations instead, tell people it's a safe space. You can really say whatever you need to say to me. It's fine. So, I'm trying to like do that more, like be quiet and, they say whatever they need to say. And then I can come in if I don't feel like a certain topic was covered, that I feel like it might be important. So I'm a work in progress and I'm trying, but sometimes I'm like Joey and it doesn't need to be explained 40 ways. Like they get it, and like you said, they'll ask questions if they don't, or we can talk offline if somebody doesn't feel comfortable speaking up in the room. So that's a challenge. Like when it's a mixed group, if he's there, like no one feels comfortable speaking up. And so then we have to have these separate meetings. So it sounds like he's going to a different role and I'll be the leader by myself, which is great. So I'm trying to tell them that, like, just forget about that. That's over. You say whatever you need to say. And we can't help or we can't work this through if people aren't honest. I don't know what you're feeling if you don't tell me. I can't help if I don't know.
I heard a line recently from an executive coach here in Toronto. I'm in Toronto, Canada. He coaches lawyers and he did a post on LinkedIn. He's a really nice guy. He posted something about instead of asking, does anyone have any questions? He says, what questions do you have? And then he shuts his mouth and I go, oh, that is good. And then if no one says anything, then you ask the person that hasn't said anything, right? What questions do you have? It's not, do you have any? Of course you have some.
Right. Thank you. That's helpful.
So what other questions? It's Priscilla. Are we okay if we go for a couple more minutes? Or
Yeah, if we have questions. Yeah, I love this. And I love the ratio too. I never like thought about that way, like calculating the ratio and like it's like the framework. It makes it easy for you to like, oh, I don't have to worry about how much I'm talking. I just gotta count how many people's in the room. This is how much I can talk today. So I love that. And all of that we all just learned today. I know there is a lot of folks in the group. I'm gonna share the recording later. That's why I'm sharing that are also looking for work, looking for jobs, and doing that self introduction during the interview. This is something that we talk a lot about here in the community because we have a job seeking group. We talk about how to make an impact during the interview. So a lot of the tips and the training that you got today, you're going to be able to also utilize during interviews, during conversations with hiring managers. This is what I love about that. I mean, Andrea also has a lot of resources on her website about resume and LinkedIn, how to like revamp your social media and resume. And you can, I'll post the links too, and I'll share the recording so you can all have access to it.
Thank you, Priscilla. I want to be even a little bit more specific about something that Priscilla said, the self-introduction framework. You know, the dreaded question, tell me about yourself. You have no idea how long to talk, where to start, where to end. Like, what do they even mean? Is this a test or are they just being lazy? Like, I can just read your thought bubble. It's like painful, right? Use present, past, future. And what I say is also use the magic number 3. So you say, my name is, I am I've done this, or this is what I do. This is what differentiates me. And then you could say, there are many things I could tell you about my past and about my credentials. I'm just going to share 3 things. And then if you want me to elaborate on them or on other things, I'm happy to. So you set it up. You tell them, I'm going to share 3 things with you. And then, but you also tell them that you're happy to elaborate on any of the 3 things or on anything else. So you're not shutting, because you don't want people to be like, oh, when I say, tell me about yourself, and you only talk for 2 minutes, that's not cool. Well, you're defying that. No matter how long you talk, you're saying that you can elaborate on anything, right? And then you go through the 3 things. And the benefit of telling someone before, I'm going to share 3 things with you, is that in their head, they're like, okay, she's set out a roadmap. She's done number 1. Okay, now she's going on to number 2. And then number 3 starts. And in their head, they're thinking, oh, so this is the 3rd of 3. So she's going to wrap it up. And in their mind, they're like, oh, thank goodness. As opposed to somebody who said, well, let me tell you about myself, blah, 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 blah. There's no structure to it. You don't know how long they're going to talk. They get to the 3rd thing and you're like, how many are there? Is it 10? Is it 10? No, it's 3. So you go present, past, let me tell you 3 things. And then at the end, you always say, I'm really excited about this job opportunity. I think I might be a great fit, but I want to hear more, right? And then they're like, you could even be specific. You could say, I read this one thing that sounds fascinating, and they're going to be very impressed. And there's research that shows when you demonstrate enthusiasm, things are more likely to work out your way. So make that future-oriented statement very enthusiastic.
Thank you. Do you have more questions? I know we're over time here. I want to respect all of your time. But if you have one more question, we're happy to stay.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to follow up on Rebecca's question just because I imagine she'll look at the recording. When you were talking about taking up space in the physical sense, what if you're super petite? How do you continue to take up space when physically that is something you had to go through? Sorry, I hope I phrased that right, Rebecca. I'm sorry.
It's so nice of you. Okay. So I happen to know a professional photographer named Lori who is petite and she owns it, right? She'll say when she's introducing herself, she'll be like, yeah, I'm small, but I'm mighty. So she creates a narrative around it that makes her actually more memorable. Or she'll say when she meets someone for the first time, I know you were expecting someone a lot taller. I do have a big personality, but this is the body I was born with, right? So she like, before you even have a chance to like compute, like what? She's tiny. She owns it. So I think there is actually some power there, right? It's about, I wouldn't memorize a script, but I would think about maybe some phrases that you could use that say something like that. There was another woman that I was coaching who's a senior banking executive, and I was coaching her during COVID. And then I met her downtown. I took her out for lunch, and she walked in wearing 4-inch heels, and she was like not up to my shoulders. Like she was tiny, tiny, tiny. And she said, and then I said to her, in our work together on your personal brand, this never came up, but people are going to notice it in person, and we need to come up with a narrative because you are a firecracker. You are a bold, you are a big, bold human in a little body. So let's come up with it and come up with a narrative around that. And again, I said to her, like, I know you think it's a disadvantage, but you can turn it into an advantage. And this is a common theme that's really, really powerful with a lot of folks that I work with. That thing about you that you try to hide, there's got to be a way to turn it into a positive. By the way, a positive that is still truthful and authentic to you. It's not like you're acting some way or something, but I've coached folks that are hiding their ethnic heritage, or which might be relevant for this group, or people that are hiding their physical presence, or people that are hiding their accent, or people that are hiding, one woman, her sense of humor. She said, my brain always, like, I have sarcastic or like stand-up comedy responses to everything that everyone says. And I was like, hang on, you just got promoted. I'm assuming your boss knows you have a good sense of humor. She's like, yeah. I said, so can we create a narrative around that? That's I'm the person that everyone wants on their team because I bring levity to dire situations and I know what to say to get people laughing and whatever, create camaraderie, right? So she's done that. She ended up getting promoted. She was thrilled about that. So I guess this is another way of thinking about your confidence. If there's something that you're trying to hide that is part of you, then think about a narrative that's true, that's something that you can lean into, that's going to make you more memorable, and that's going to share that thing in a way that's true and authentic to you, and that's going to help you.
Super helpful. And I know many of us want to hide our accent or where we came from because, we're constantly competing with people with no accent, with, different backgrounds. So it really hits home.
Can I say something? I think, Priscilla, you've probably heard me tell this story about this woman with an East Indian accent who asked the question in an open Q&A on personal branding. She said, I'm tired of being known as the immigrant. I want to be known as the lawyer that I am. I want my brand to shift from immigrant to lawyer. So I asked her a bunch of questions. Where did you grow up? And I said, by the way, your accent, we all have an accent, right? The accent becomes noticeable when it's sounding different from the people that you're communicating with, but they have accents too, right? It just depends on who's in the room. I said, your English is clear. I can tell you have an accent. Let's turn it into a positive. Your accent is evidence of your global experience. You're not just a lawyer. You're a corporate lawyer in Manhattan with global experience. Boom. And your accent is evidence of that. And she was like, okay, check. Thank you. I'm not an immigrant. I said, if someone says the word immigrant, you correct them. Don't say, no, I'm not an immigrant. Just say, yes, I have global experience. Next question, right? I see some smiles on that one. That's awesome.
I mean, we have a big group that's going to watch this video, and I know that it's going to, touch because that's something that we constantly have to, validate ourselves and make sure that we're not being discarded because of our accent, right? Because where we came from, you're constantly running up against like being passed on promotions or things because of that type of mentality. So that's super helpful. I remember hearing that in one of your podcasts. I'm like, oh, this is gold. I love this. And it's like something that everybody needs to hear and keep hearing. And when you forget, you go back to the episode and listen again because you just got to remember. But it's almost 4 o'clock, it's 3:58. Thank you so much for staying like longer. Thank you for bringing in the questions. Thank you, Andrea, for like preparing this whole presentation, doing the exercise with us. I know a lot of people are gonna watch this later and love it. I appreciate the time you guys spend. I'm looking forward to continue the mentorship group. We still have the quarter to go. I'm excited for all the learnings and all the feedback that's going to come out of that.
Thank you, Priscilla. You are a star. It was lovely to meet all of you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. We can continue the conversation there.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks,
Thank
Priscilla.
you.
Bye.
You.